My wife texted, "Don't come home tonight," while I was driving back from Chicago. I went to my brother's house instead. What he showed me on his laptop made me throw a crystal glass against the wall with enough force to leave a dent. My 26-year marriage wasn't what I thought it was. Neither was my family. Neither was the man I'd mentored like a son 18 years ago. My name is Richard Callahan. I'm 53 years old, and I've spent the last 28 years building two things: a commercial development empire worth north of $200 million, and what I believed was an unshakable marriage. Turns out I was only good at one of them. The other was built on sand, and I was too busy laying concrete foundations across 3 states to notice the erosion happening in my own home. The text came through while I was driving back from Chicago, somewhere outside Gary, Indiana, where the skyline gives way to refineries and truck stops. 3 days of site inspections and investor meetings, the kind of grind that built Callahan Development Group into what it is today. The kind of trips that kept me on the road 2 weeks out of every month. My phone lit up on the dash mount. "Amanda, don't come home tonight." I stared at those 4 words while an 18-wheeler roared past my Lincoln Navigator, its wake buffeting my vehicle. 26 years of marriage, 2 kids raised, a house in Naperville with a mortgage I paid off 5 years early, and she'd never sent me anything like that. My fingers found the phone at the next red light. "Why not?" I typed back, watching the 3 dots appear and disappear twice before her response came through. The reply took 2 full minutes. Each second stretched like pulled taffy, my mind racing through possibilities. Emergency? One of the kids? Her mother? "There's a surprise I'm setting up for our anniversary. Please, just trust me. Go to Luke's place. I'll explain tomorrow. Love you." Our anniversary. Which wasn't for another 3 weeks. Trust her, right? I trusted her with everything. My heart, my home, my children William and Harper, every business secret that crossed my desk. What was one more night? But something felt profoundly wrong. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, that same instinct that had saved me from bad deals and worse partners over the years. Amanda wasn't the surprise type. Our last anniversary, I planned a weekend in Napa Valley, spent $4,000 on a suite at the Alberts. She'd complained about the cost the entire flight, said we should have just gone to Wisconsin Dells instead. I pulled off at the next exit and called my brother, bypassing the whole tech charade. "Luke, it's me. Can I crash at your place tonight?" Luke Callahan, 6 years younger and sharp enough to cut glass, didn't even pause to ask why. My kid brother worked as my VP of acquisitions, the guy who found the properties that made us rich. He knew how to read a situation. His voice went tight, careful. "Rich, how fast can you get here?" "Hour, maybe less. Traffic's light." "Why? What's going on?" "Just drive. Don't call Amanda back. Don't text her. Don't let her know you're coming here. Just get here." The line went dead before I could press him. I pushed the Navigator to 80, weaving through evening traffic on I-94 like a man fleeing a fire he couldn't see yet, but could damn sure smell. Luke's tone had flipped every alarm in my head. He knew something. Something bad enough that he couldn't say it over the phone. Something that made my wife's convenient anniversary excuse smell like 3-day-old fish. 42 minutes later, I pulled into his driveway in Oak Brook. The Colonial sat dark except for a single light burning in his study window, a yellow square in the gathering dusk. Luke opened the front door before I could knock, his face grim as a pallbearer at a funeral he'd been dreading. "Come in," Luke said quietly, already stepping aside. "You're going to want to sit down for this, brother." "What's going on?" "Is it Amanda?" "The kids." He led me through the house without answering, past family photos on the walls, his wedding, his kids, our parents before Dad passed, down the hall to his study, where his laptop sat open on the mahogany desk like an accusation. Rain started drumming against the windows, nature providing a soundtrack for whatever nightmare was about to unfold. 2 weeks ago, Luke began, pulling up a chair next to mine, his voice measured and careful. "I was at your house dropping off those contract revisions for the Schaumburg project. You were in Denver meeting with the zoning commission. Amanda said she make sure you got them." He paused, jaw working. She wasn't alone. My stomach dropped straight through the floor. "Show me," I said. Luke clicked a few keys, and the screen filled with footage from what I immediately recognized as my own living room. The timestamp read 2:34 p.m., 2 weeks ago Thursday. I'd been in Denver that day, presenting to the City Planning Commission about our mixed-use development on the old Stapleton site. The camera angle showed the couch, the fireplace Amanda had insisted we renovate last year for $40,000, the entertainment center I'd built with my own hands when William was 5. Our home. Then Amanda walked in a frame, and she wasn't alone. Garrett Pierce followed her, his hand on the small of her back in a way that made my blood freeze. Garrett Dan Pierce. The man I'd given his star to 18 years ago, when he was a nobody fresh out of grad school with more ambition than sense. I'd hired him at Callahan Development, taught him everything about commercial real estate, walked him through his first 3 deals. 5 years later, he'd left to start Pierce Commercial Group, taking 2 of my junior associates with him. We'd been competitors ever since, bidding against each other for properties, undercutting each other's proposals. But I'd never hated him. Competition was business. This was something else entirely. Keep watching, Luke said quietly, his voice tight with controlled anger. On screen, Amanda poured 2 glasses of wine. My wine, from the cabinet I'd stocked. They sat close on the couch, closer than any married woman should sit with another man. Then Pierce leaned in and kissed her. Not a friendly peck. A kiss that spoke of practice, of repetition, of comfort. Amanda kissed him back. I want to look away. Couldn't. My hands gripped the armrests of Luke's leather chair so hard my knuckles went white. 26 years of marriage. And this is what it had come to. My wife, in my house, with a man I'd mentored like a son. The footage continued. They talked, heads close together. I couldn't hear the audio, but I didn't need to. Body language told the whole story. Amanda got up, returned with a folder. She opened it on the coffee table. Even from the camera angle, I could see the Callahan Development logo on the documents inside. That's the Riverside Tower project, I said, my voice coming out hoarse. Those are confidential financial projections. I know, Luke replied. Keep watching. Amanda pointed to specific pages. Pierce pulled out his phone, took pictures of the documents. My wife was feeding my business rival proprietary information. This wasn't just an affair. This was corporate espionage wrapped in betrayal. The timestamp rolled forward. More footage. Different days. Amanda and Pierce, meeting when I was out of town. Sometimes in my house. Once in what looked like his car parked in our driveway. The audacity of it burned in my chest like acid. Then the footage shifted. My son William appeared on screen, walking into the living room with a laptop. He sat down with Pierce and Amanda, showed them something on the screen. Even without audio, I could read my son's lips. Dad's meeting with the investors next Tuesday. No, I whispered. Not William. I'm sorry, Rich, Luke said. It gets worse. He pulled up another file. Email exchanges. William's account to an address I didn't recognize. Subject lines about project timelines, investor lists, financing terms. My 29-year-old son, who I'd brought into the family business 3 years ago, who I'd been grooming to take over someday, was selling me out. How long have you known? I asked, my voice barely audible. 2 weeks. Since I saw them that day. I installed the cameras the next time you were out of town. Amanda has a key to my place. Never thought I'd need to hide anything from her. Luke paused. I've been gathering evidence, trying to figure out how deep this goes before I told you. How deep does it go? Luke pulled up a spreadsheet. Pierce's company was 6 weeks from bankruptcy 4 months ago. Now, he secured financing for 3 major projects. All of them properties you were bidding on. Properties he shouldn't have known about. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Every deal I'd lost in the past 4 months. Every time Pierce had somehow outbid me by just enough. Every project that had slipped through my fingers while I'd wondered what I was doing wrong. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was being sabotaged by my own family. What about Harper? I asked, almost afraid of the answer. Luke's expression softened slightly. Your daughter's clean, as far as I can tell. She's away at Northwestern, doesn't seem to be involved. Small mercy. I stood up, walked to the window. Rain streaked the glass. My reflection looked back at me, a man who'd spent 3 decades building an empire and a family, only to discover both had been undermined from within. I need copies of everything. I said, my voice steady now cold. The initial shock was crystallizing into something harder. Every video, every email, every piece of evidence you've gathered. What are you going to do? Luke asked. I turned to face my brother, the only family member I could apparently trust. I'm going to teach them what it means to betray a Callahan. I spent that night at Luke's house, going through every piece of evidence until my eyes burned. By 3 a.m., I had a clear picture of the betrayal, and it was worse than I'd imagined. Amanda, William, and Pierce had been coordinating for at least 6 months, maybe longer. But I needed more than security footage and emails. I needed someone who knew how to dig deeper, someone who could find things that stayed buried, someone who understood what it felt like to be betrayed by people you trusted with your life. Luke made the call at sunrise. Diane Reeves, he said, handed me a business card. Former FBI white-collar crimes division. She runs a private investigation firm now. Specializes in corporate espionage and marital cases. He paused. She's also been through something similar. Her husband was a defense attorney who left her for a paralegal half his age. Cleaned out their joint accounts on the way out the door. I studied the card. Reeves Investigative Services. A Chicago address. She'll understand what you're going through, Luke added. And she doesn't pull punches. 3 hours later, I was sitting across from Diane Reeves in her downtown office, a corner space with views of the Chicago River. She was 58, sharp-eyed, with short gray hair, and the bearing of someone who'd spent years dealing with liars professionally. I laid out everything. The affair, the corporate espionage, William's involvement. She listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. "Mr. Callahan," she said when I finished, "what exactly do you want from me?" "Everything," I replied. "I want to know how deep this goes. I want to know if there are things my brother hasn't found. And I want leverage." "Leverage for what?" "To destroy them. Legally, completely, and so thoroughly they never recover." Diane studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "I can work with that." She flipped to a fresh page. "First question, do you want to save your marriage?" "No." "Good. That makes this simpler." She wrote something down. "Second question, how much are you willing to spend?" "Whatever it takes." "Also good." Diane leaned back in her chair. "I'll need access to financial records, email accounts, phone records if you can get them legally. I'll run background checks on Pierce and anyone else involved. And I'll dig into Pierce's business dealings. If your wife and son have been feeding him information for 6 months, there's a pattern. Patterns leave traces. How long will this take?" 2 weeks for a preliminary report. For comprehensive. "But Mr. Callahan," she fixed me with a hard stare, "if I find evidence of criminal activity, and corporate espionage is criminal, I'm obligated to report it. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about William. My son. The boy I taught to ride a bike, to throw a baseball, to read a contract. The man who'd stabbed me in the back for money and his mother's lover. "Yes," I said. "I'm prepared." Diane extended her hand. "Then we have a deal." 2 days later, I was back home. Amanda greeted me at the door with a kiss that tasted like poison. I returned it, played the dutiful husband. The anniversary surprise she'd mentioned in her text turned out to be a new watch she'd bought with my credit card. I thanked her, told her it was perfect. William came by for dinner that night. We talked about a new project in Milwaukee, expansion plans, the usual business. He asked about the Denver trip, how the presentation had gone. I told him it went well, watched him absorb the information like he always did. Later, I checked the hidden camera Luke had installed in my study. Sure enough, William had photographed 3 documents while I'd been in the kitchen making drinks. My own son, right in front of me. I went to bed next to Amanda that night, her breathing steady beside me. She had no idea I knew. No idea that while she slept, I was building a case that would tear her world apart. 3 days in, Diane called with her first update. "Found something interesting," she said. "Pierce didn't just use your information to win bids. He sold some of it to a third party, a development company called Meridian Holdings, based in Austin. Never heard of them. Most people haven't. They're an LLC with opaque ownership. But I traced the money. Pierce received $180,000 from Meridian over the past 4 months. Payments structured to avoid reporting requirements. That's money laundering territory, Mr. Callahan." My jaw tightened. What were they buying? Information on your upcoming projects. Site assessments, environmental reports, zoning strategies. Everything they need to either compete with you or shake you down. Can you prove it? Working on it. But there's something else. Diane paused. Your wife tried to invalidate your prenuptial agreement 2 years ago. Hired 3 different law firms. All of them told her the same thing. It's airtight. So this had been planned. Not a moment of weakness. Not a midlife crisis. A calculated, 2-year strategy to rob me blind. "Keep digging," I said. "I want everything." I became a ghost in my own life. Every morning, I kissed Amanda goodbye. Every evening, I had dinner with her and discussed our day like nothing had changed. At the office, I worked side by side with William, teaching him, trusting him publicly while documenting every lie privately. Luke called it the hardest thing he'd ever watched me do. He was right. But I'd learned a long time ago that the best revenge isn't hot. It's cold, calculated, and absolutely devastating. Diane's investigation expanded like ripples in water. She found bank accounts I didn't know existed, credit cards in Amanda's name with balances I'd never seen, a storage unit in Schaumburg rented 3 years ago, contents unknown. I need to see inside that unit, I told her during our weekly meeting. Legally, whatever it takes. She managed it through a contact at the storage facility. The photos she brought back made my blood run cold. Boxes of documents from my office, USB drives, printed emails dating back 5 years. Amanda had been stealing from me longer than I'd imagined. But the real discovery came 2 weeks into the investigation. Your son made a mistake, Diane said, sliding a folder across her desk. He used the family computer to email Pierce. Saved the draft, but didn't delete it from the cloud backup. I opened the folder. The email was from William to Pierce, dated 3 months ago. Dad's meeting with First National about the Riverside financing tomorrow. He thinks we need $40 million. I suggested he ask for $50 million to cover overruns. The extra $10 million would give us room to maneuver once you secure the competing property. He played me. I said quietly. Made me ask for more money than I needed, knowing Pierce would use that against me with other lenders. It's better, Diane said. Or worse, depending on your perspective. I tracked Pierce's communications. He's been coordinating with your wife through a burner phone. But 3 months ago, he also contacted someone else. She pulled up a screenshot. An email from Pierce to an address in Texas. Meridian Holdings? I asked. Not just Meridian. Look at the signature. I read the email footer. My vision tunneled. The sender was Harold Kingsley, Amanda's father, the former senator. Your father-in-law is behind Meridian, Diane confirmed. He's been using Pierce as a cutout to funnel your proprietary information to his own development company. Amanda and William are feeding Pierce. Pierce is feeding Kingsley. It's a 3-generation betrayal. I sat back, processing. Harold Kingsley, the man who'd walked Amanda down the aisle, who'd given the toast at our rehearsal dinner about family loyalty, who'd bounced William on his knee when he was a baby. How much has he made off this? I asked. Conservatively, $8 million in the past year alone. Properties he bought cheap because he knew your plans, then flipped to other developers. Zoning changes he anticipated because you'd already done the groundwork. The scope of it was staggering. This wasn't just an affair. It was an organized criminal enterprise, and my family was running it. I want to meet with him, I said. Diane raised an eyebrow. Kingsley? That's not advisable. I don't care. Set it up. Tell him I want to discuss a business opportunity. Something big enough he can't ignore. You're baiting him. I'm giving him enough rope to hang himself with. Can you do it? She studied me for a long moment. You're sure about this? Once we confront him, he'll know you're onto them. I'm not going to confront him. I'm going to record him. I want him admitting everything on tape. Then I'm going to use it to destroy all of them at once. Diane smiled for the first time since I met her. Now we're talking. I'll make the call. 3 days later, I sat in Harold Kingsley's downtown Chicago office, a corner suite with views of Lake Michigan. The former senator looked distinguished at 75, silver-haired and confident. Richard, he said warmly, shaking my hand. Diane said you had a proposal. I do. I replied, the digital recorder in my jacket pocket already running. I'm looking at a development opportunity in Phoenix. 40 acres, mixed-use potential. But I need a partner with political connections. Someone who knows how to navigate zoning boards and city councils. Kingsley's eyes lit up. What kind of returns are we talking about? I spent the next 30 minutes laying out a completely fabricated project, watching him take notes, ask questions about timelines and financing. Then I went for the kill. The thing is, Harold, I need someone I can trust completely. Someone who understands the value of inside information. I paused. Like the kind of partnership you have with Garrett Pierce. His pen stopped moving. I don't know what you mean, he said carefully. Sure you do. Meridian Holdings. The LLC you use to buy properties I've already researched. The company Pierce feeds information to. I leaned forward. The question is, do you want to bring me into that arrangement? Or should I find another partner? Kingsley's face hardened. For a moment, I thought he'd throw me out. Then he smiled, cold and calculating. How long have you known? Long enough. I kept my voice steady, knowing every word was being recorded. I'm not here to cause problems, Harold. I'm here to get my cut. Harold. Kingsley leaned back in his chair, swirling his scotch. The recorder in my pocket caught every word. Let me be clear about something, Richard, he said. What you're describing, this arrangement, it's simply smart business. Information is currency. Always has been. I understand that, I replied. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to profit. He smiled. You know, when Amanda first came to me 2 years ago, upset about that prenup of yours, I told her the best revenge was financial independence. Pierce was my idea. The boy needed capital, and I needed someone on the inside of your operation. My blood ran cold, but I kept my expression neutral. Amanda came to you? Of course. She's my daughter. Harold took a sip of his drink. She felt trapped. You were always working, always building, never giving her the attention she deserved. Pierce offered her something you couldn't. Presents. I offered her something better, a way out with money. And William. The boy's ambitious. Saw an opportunity to build his own empire instead of waiting for yours. Can't fault him for that. Harold leaned forward. Here's what I'll tell you, Richard. If you want in, you need to bring something valuable. Real intelligence. Projects we can move on immediately. I pulled a folder from my briefcase. Inside were documents for a fabricated mixed-use development in Scottsdale. Completely fake, but detailed enough to look legitimate. This is my goodwill offering, I said. Scottsdale City Council is voting on zoning changes next month. If we move now, we can acquire the property before the vote goes public. Estimated profit, $15 million. Harold's eyes gleamed as he reviewed the documents. He had no idea every word of our conversation was being recorded. No idea that the project was fiction designed to trap him. I'll need to verify some of this, he said. But if it checks out, we have a deal. Welcome to the family business, son. The irony of him calling me son, while describing how he'd orchestrated my betrayal, would have been funny if it wasn't so damn tragic. I left the restaurant with everything I needed. Harold Kingsley confessing to conspiracy, to using Pierce as a cutout, to manipulating Amanda and William. All on tape, all admissible. Diane was waiting in her car across the street. I slid into the passenger seat and handed her the recorder. Tell me you got it, she said. Every word. He practically wrote his own indictment. She smiled. Then we moved to phase 2. But Richard, once we start this, there's no going back. Your wife, your son, your father-in-law, they're all going down. Are you absolutely certain? I thought about Amanda kissing Pierce in my living room. William photographing my confidential documents. Harold admitting he'd orchestrated the whole thing for profit. 26 years of marriage reduced to a con job. I'm certain, I said. Let's finish this. Over the next week, Diane coordinated with federal prosecutors. Corporate espionage, wire fraud, money laundering. The charges stacked up like cordwood. But the prosecutors wanted more evidence, more documentation, more proof that this was a criminal enterprise and not just a messy divorce. That's when Diana found the storage unit receipts. And what we discovered inside changed everything. The storage unit in Schaumburg was climate-controlled, paid for with a credit card I'd never seen. Diane's contact at the facility let us in with a warrant she'd secured through a prosecutor friend. What we found inside was a blueprint for my destruction. Boxes of documents dating back 5 years. USB drives labeled by project name. Printed emails between Amanda and Pierce going back 3 years, long before I'd thought the affair started. File folders organized by year, each one containing stolen information about my business deals, my clients, my strategies. But the worst discovery was a spiral notebook in Amanda's handwriting. A journal of sorts, documenting her affair with Pierce and her growing resentment toward me. Richard came home tonight talking about the Milwaukee project again. One entry read, "Doesn't even ask about my day. Garrett makes me feel seen. Makes me feel alive. Richard makes me feel like a prop in his success story." Another entry, dated 6 months later. Father suggested we could use Richard's information to fund our future. Garrett needs capital. I need freedom. William needs to learn the family business isn't charity. It's warfare. This could work for all of us. The entries continued, each one more damning. Plans to feed information to Pierce. Strategies to avoid detection. William's increasing involvement. Harold's guidance on how to structure the theft to avoid legal consequences. Father says the prenup is unbreakable, she'd written a year ago. So we do this the smart way. Build a nest egg while Richard's focused on his empire. When I finally leave, I'll have enough to live the life I deserve. I photographed every page, every document, every USB drive label. The evidence was overwhelming. This wasn't just betrayal, it was organized crime. Diana called her prosecutor contact from a storage facility. We've got enough for RICO charges, she told me after hanging up. Your wife, Pierce, William, and Harold Kingsley ran this like a criminal syndicate. The prosecutors want to move forward. How long until arrests? I asked. 2 weeks, maybe less. They want to coordinate everything. Search warrants, asset freezes, the whole operation. When they move, they'll move fast. I nodded, absorbing the reality. In 2 weeks, my wife would be arrested. My son would be in handcuffs. My father-in-law, the former senator, would be perp-walked in front of cameras. What about me? I asked. What do I do until then? Nothing. Act normal. Go home to your wife. Work with your son. Don't give them any indication you know. The prosecution needs them comfortable, complacent, still operating. So I went home. Kissed Amanda hello. Had dinner with her. Listened to her talk about her day, about our anniversary plans, about Harper's upcoming visit from college. All while knowing that in 2 weeks, federal agents would be at her door. The hardest part was working with William. He came to the office every day, sat in meetings, contributed ideas. My son, who I'd raised to value integrity above all else, had sold me out for money and his mother's approval. 3 days before the arrests, I had lunch with Harper. My daughter flew in from Northwestern, bright and energetic and completely innocent. I told her I missed her, needed to see her, and she'd come without question. Dad, you seem stressed. Harper said over pasta at her favorite restaurant. Is everything okay? I wanted to tell her. Wanted to prepare her for what was coming. But the prosecutors had been clear. No warnings, no advance notice to anyone. Just work stuff, sweetheart, I lied. Nothing for you to worry about. She studied my face. At 18, she'd inherited my ability to read people. You tell me if something was really wrong, right? Always, I promised. Another lie. But this one was mercy. The week before the arrest crawled by like months. Every conversation with Amanda felt like walking through a minefield. Every meeting with William required an actor's discipline I didn't know I possessed. But Diane's investigation kept uncovering new threads to pull. 3 days before the planned federal operation, she called with news that made my jaw clench. Pierce is in deeper trouble than we thought, she said. Remember those mysterious investors I mentioned? The ones with questionable backgrounds. The money laundering connections, I confirmed. They're not just unhappy about Pierce's impending bankruptcy. They're actively threatening him. She paused. I've got recordings from a PI Pierce hired for protection. These people want their money back, and they don't care how they get it. So Pierce is caught between federal charges and loan sharks. I said. Worse. Yesterday, Pierce tried to reach out to you through an intermediary. Actually went through your assistant Diana Reeves. He wanted a meeting to discuss mutual business interests. Diana, my VP of operations. The one person besides Luke I trusted throughout this nightmare. I'd brought her into the inner circle 2 weeks ago when we needed someone inside the office to monitor William's activities. What did Diana tell him? I asked. That you were too busy. But Rich, Pierce is desperate. Desperate people do unpredictable things. The FBI wants to move up the timeline. Day after tomorrow, 6 a.m. Simultaneous arrests of Pierce, Amanda, William, and Harold Kingsley. 2 days. I had 2 days to hold it together. That afternoon, William stopped by my office with a proposal. He wanted to take the lead on a new development in Aurora, a $30 million mixed-use project. His eyes were bright with enthusiasm, the same look he'd had as a kid when I taught him to use power tools. This could be huge for us, Dad, William said, spreading blueprints across my desk. I've done the preliminary research, talked to some zoning contacts. We could break ground by spring. I looked at my son, 29 years old, intelligent, capable, and completely compromised. He had no idea that in 48 hours, FBI agents would be reading him his rights. It's a solid proposal, I said carefully. Let me review the numbers, and we'll talk next week. Next week, when he'd be in federal custody, and I'd be picking up the pieces of my shattered family. That evening, Amanda suggested we have dinner at Giovanni's, our anniversary spot. We hadn't been there in 2 years, not since she'd complained about the prices. Now she wanted to go. It would be nice, she said, touching my arm in that way that once would have melted my defenses. We haven't had a real date in months. I agreed, wondering what angle she was working. That night at Giovanni's, over veal and wine I could barely taste, Amanda talked about our future. Maybe we should travel more. Maybe I should cut back on work. Maybe we should renew our vows for our 30th anniversary next year. Every word was performance. Every smile was calculated. And I matched her lie for lie, playing the husband who still believed, who still trusted, who still loved the woman sitting across from me. I'd like that, I told her. All of it. The next day, Diane called with final confirmation. Everything's set. Tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Federal agents will execute search warrants at your home, Pierce's office, Kingsley's downtown office, and William's apartment. Asset freezes are in place. The prosecutors have everything they need. What do? I asked. Be there. The FBI wants you present when they arrest Amanda. It's not required, but they think it sends a message. I thought about that. About watching my wife of 26 years being handcuffed in our bedroom. About looking in her eyes when she realized I'd known all along. About being there when her world collapsed the way mine had collapsed in Luke's study. I'll be there, I said. That final evening, I couldn't sleep. I stood at the bedroom window watching the neighborhood sleep. Houses dark except for the occasional porch light. Somewhere in one of those houses, Pierce was probably awake too, terrified of tomorrow. Somewhere downtown, Harold Kingsley slept the sleep of the powerful, not knowing his last night of freedom was ending. And beside me, Amanda slept peacefully, dreaming whatever dreams traitors dream. At 5:30 a.m., I got up and dressed. Amanda stirred but didn't wake. I went downstairs, made coffee, and waited. At exactly 6 a.m., 4 black SUVs pulled up to my house. The doorbell rang 3 times, sharp and official. Amanda appeared at the top of the stairs in her robe, confused. Richard? Who's here this early? I opened the door. 6 FBI agents stood on my porch, bulletproof vests visible under their windbreakers. The lead agent, a woman in her 40s with steel-gray eyes, held up her badge. Mrs. Amanda Callahan, she called past me. Amanda descended the stairs slowly, her face pale. Yes. I'm Special Agent Blackwell with the FBI. We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of corporate espionage, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit theft of trade secrets. The agent stepped inside, and 2 others followed. You have the right to remain silent. The Miranda rights continued as Amanda's eyes found mine. In that moment, she understood. The confusion in her face transformed into shock, then recognition, then pure fury. You knew, she breathed. Yes, I said simply. I knew. How long? Long enough. An agent moved to handcuff her, and she pulled away. Richard, please. We can talk about this. Whatever you think happened. I don't think anything, Amanda. I know. I know about Pierce. About your father. About William. I know about the storage unit in Schaumburg and every document you stole. I know about Meridian Holdings and the $8 million you helped steal from my company. I stepped closer, my voice dropping. I know you planned this for 2 years. That you tried to break our prenup, and, when you couldn't, decided to rob me blind instead. Her face crumbled, but I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication. Just emptiness where love used to be. They took her away in handcuffs. Through the front door, down the walk, into an SUV while neighbors watched from windows. 26 years of marriage ending with federal agents reading charges into a recording device. Luke arrived 30 minutes later as I was standing in my kitchen, staring at Amanda's coffee mug still on the counter. They got Pierce an hour ago, Luke said. William 20 minutes ago at his apartment. Harold Kingsley is being arrested at his office downtown right now. It's over, Rich. Yeah, I said. It's over. My phone rang. Diana Reeves. Mr. Callahan, there's something you need to know. About 3 months ago, William approached me at a company dinner. He asked me to join their operation, promised me a VP position at Pierce Commercial if I'd feed them information about your upcoming deals. What did you tell him? I asked, though I already knew. I told him to go to hell. Then I didn't tell you because I wasn't sure if you believed me over your own son. Her voice hardened. I should have told you immediately. I'm sorry. Diana, you have nothing to apologize for. You were in an impossible position. For what it's worth, she said, I'm glad you got them. What they did to you, what they were trying to do to your company, it was unconscionable. After we hung up, I walked through my house. Every room held memories now poisoned by betrayal. The kitchen where Amanda and I had planned our life together. The study where William had stolen my secrets. The bedroom where lies had been told for years. My phone buzzed. A text from Harper. Dad, what's happening? Someone posted on social media that Mom was arrested. Please call me. I called her immediately. She was crying before I could say hello. Dad, is it true? About Mom and William. Yes, sweetheart. It's true. What do they do? I told her everything. The affair, the espionage, the years of systematic theft. She listened in silence, and when I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. I'm coming home, Harper said finally. You shouldn't be alone right now. You don't have to. I'm coming home. I'll be there tonight. The news broke by noon. Local stations ran footage of Harold Kingsley being perp-walked from his downtown office, the former senator's face ashen. National outlets picked up the story by 2 p.m. Former senator arrested in corporate espionage scheme. Pierce Commercial Group's bankruptcy filing hit the courts by 3 p.m. My lawyer called at 4. The prosecutors want to meet with you tomorrow. They're considering adding RICO charges given the organized nature of the conspiracy. This could mean 15 to 20 years for everyone involved. Even William? I asked. He's young, first offense. If he cooperates, maybe less. But yes, prison time is almost certain. I hung up and stared at my phone. My son. Prison. I destroyed him to save myself. But he destroyed himself first. I just made sure he paid for it. 4 months after the arrests, I sat in a federal courtroom watching my family's destruction become official. Amanda wore an orange jumpsuit instead of the designer clothes she'd always insisted on. William sat beside his attorney, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Garrett Pierce avoided my eyes entirely. Harold Kingsley maintained his senatorial dignity, even in handcuffs, but the cameras caught the truth in his face, fear. The judge read the verdicts without emotion. Amanda, guilty on all counts. William, guilty on all counts. Pierce, guilty on all counts. Harold Kingsley, guilty on all counts, with RICO enhancements. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Amanda received 12 years. William got 8 with credit for cooperation. Pierce got 15. Harold Kingsley, the former senator who'd orchestrated everything, received 22 years. At 75, it was effectively a life sentence. Harper sat beside me through it all, her hand in mine. My daughter had dropped out of Northwestern to be with me, despite my protests. She'd moved back home, helped me sort through the wreckage, been there for the hard nights when the emptiness of the house felt like it might swallow me whole. You did the right thing, Dad, she said as we left the courthouse. Reporters shouted questions we didn't answer. What they did to you, to us, they deserve this. But did they? That question haunted me more than I'd expected. Diana Reeves had been promoted to executive VP at Callahan Development. She'd earned it, both for her loyalty during the investigation and her work rebuilding the company's reputation afterward. We'd lost 3 major clients in the scandal's immediate aftermath, but Diana had methodically won them back through transparency and competence. The Riverside Tower project broke ground yesterday, Diana reported during our weekly meeting. We're ahead of schedule and under budget. The press coverage has been positive. People respect that you didn't let the scandal stop the business. Good, I said. What about the Milwaukee expansion? On track. We've also had inquiries about the Phoenix market, ironically enough. She smiled slightly. The fictional project you used to trap Harold Kingsley? 3 developers have asked if we're actually planning something there. Life moved forward. Business continued. The empire I'd built survived the earthquake that had shaken its foundation. But I hadn't. 3 weeks after sentencing, I received a letter from William. The prison stamp was from the federal facility in Terre Haute, Indiana. I almost threw it away unopened. Almost. Dad, I know you won't forgive me. I'm not asking for that. But I need you to know I understand now what I threw away. Not the money or the job. I threw away you. Threw away the man who taught me everything, who believed in me when nobody else did. I threw away my integrity for Mom's approval and grandfather's promises. Prison gives you a lot of time to think, to see yourself clearly, maybe for the first time. I was weak. greedy, stupid, and I hurt the one person who never deserved it. I don't expect a response. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry. For whatever that's worth. William. I read it 3 times, then put it in my desk drawer. I didn't respond. Wasn't ready to. Maybe never would be. Luke stopped by that evening with bourbon and concern. You doing okay, Rich? He asked, settling into the chair across from my home office desk. Define okay, I replied. Fair point. He poured 2 drinks. Harper called me. She's worried about you. Says you work 16-hour days and barely eat. I'm fine. You're not fine. You won. You got justice. You destroyed everyone who betrayed you. And you're more miserable now than you were when you first found out. I took a long drink. You think I should have handled it differently? No. I think you handled it exactly right. I think you're a good man who did a hard thing. And now you're paying the price for it. Luke leaned forward. But Rich, you can't let their betrayal turn you into someone you're not. You were always the builder, not the destroyer. Maybe it's time to start building again. 5 months after sentencing, I did something I hadn't done in years. I took a vacation. Harper convinced me to join her for 2 weeks in Colorado, hiking and fishing and deliberately not thinking about Chicago or business or betrayal. On a quiet morning by a mountain stream, watching the sunrise paint the peaks gold, I realized Luke had been right. I'd won the war, but lost myself in the process. The cold calculation that had served me so well in destroying them had become a permanent state. I'd stopped being Richard Callahan, developer and father, and become something harder, colder, less human. Dad, Harper said, sitting down beside me with 2 cups of coffee, I've been thinking about going back to school, finishing my degree. You should, I said immediately. You gave up too much to help me. I didn't give up anything I wasn't willing to give. She handed me a cup. But I'm ready to go back now. Are you ready for me to go back? Was I? The house would be empty again. Just me and the ghosts of a family that had imploded. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. We returned to Chicago on a Tuesday. The office felt different somehow, less like a fortress and more like just a workplace. Diana had everything running smoothly. The Milwaukee project was ahead of schedule. A new opportunity in St. Louis looked promising. That afternoon, I did something I've been avoiding for months. I drove to Terre Haute and put my name on William's visitor list. I didn't go inside. Wasn't ready for that yet. But I took the first step. A week later, my old mentor Walter Hodge called. I hadn't spoken to him since before the arrests, though he'd sent a note afterward that simply said, "You did what you had to do. Now don't forget to be human again." "Richard," Walter said, his 81-year-old voice still strong. "I've got a young developer I'm mentoring. Smart kid, hungry, reminds me of you at that age. He could use some guidance from someone who's actually built something. You interested?" I thought about Garrett Pierce, about how I'd mentored him, only to have him betray me, about how that betrayal had made me reluctant to trust, to teach, to invest in anyone new. Then I thought about the alternative, letting Pierce's betrayal poison every future relationship, every potential friendship, every opportunity to build something good. "Yeah," I said. "I'm interested." His name was David Foster, 27 years old with a finance degree and more ambition than sense. He reminded me of myself 3 decades ago, eager, hungry, willing to work ungodly hours to prove himself. Over lunch at a diner in Oak Park, I told him my story. Not the sanitized version the newspapers had run, but the truth. The betrayal, the investigation, the arrests, the guilt of destroying my own son. "Why are you telling me this?" David asked. "Because I want you to understand something," I said. "Success in this business requires trust. You'll build partnerships, mentor people, create relationships that feel like family. Some of those relationships will last a lifetime. Some will end in betrayal. But you can't let the fear of betrayal stop you from trusting again." He absorbed that, young enough to think it wouldn't happen to him, old enough to understand it might. "So you do it again?" David asked. "Mentor someone like Pierce, knowing how it ended?" I thought about that question as I drove home. Would I? Knowing the cost, knowing the pain, knowing I'd eventually have to destroy him? The answer surprised me. Yes, because the alternative was becoming someone I didn't want to be. Cynical, isolated, afraid to invest in people because they might hurt me. 8 months after the sentencing, I visited William in prison. We sat across from each other in a visiting room that smelled like industrial cleaner and desperation. He looked older, harder, changed by incarceration in ways I didn't want to catalog. I didn't think you'd come, William said. I didn't think I would either. We talked for an hour. About nothing important. How he was adjusting, what he was reading, what the food was like. We didn't discuss Amanda, or Pierce, or Harold. Didn't talk about the betrayal, or the trial. Just father and son, finding our way through an impossible situation. As I stood to leave, William said, I know I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know I'm going to spend every day of the next 8 years becoming someone you could be proud of again. Then that's what you should do, I said. Driving away from Terre Haute, I realized something. The betrayal would always be part of my story, always be a scar I carried. But it didn't have to be the end of my story. I could choose what came next. Bitterness or rebuilding, isolation or trust, destruction or creation. I'd spent months being the destroyer. Maybe it was time to be the builder again. The house was still empty when I got home, but instead of feeling like a tomb, it felt like a blank canvas, a place where something new could be built on the ruins of what had been. And for the first time in almost a year, that felt like enough.